Hey everybody, this is Dave, the shipyard modeler, but I'm building a tank for somebody now. Actually, four tanks. This is the second of the tanks, and ran across some problems in the first one that I'll be going over with this. First of all, I take all the parts that I want to paint black, and I paint them black. This is pretty much the whole tank. I'll be using that as a base to paint over. Then I take some wet brush. You can either use Dunkelbrunn or Vallejo dark yellow, which is I'm using this, and outline your tires with a felt pen. Then you come back with washes and stuff to get rid of the ink glare, and that comes out pretty good. Here's I guess a detailed picture of the finished wheels, but I'm not sure if that's finished because I can't see the picture very well. But anyway, then I do the side plates. That's done in it's semi-wet brush. You have to do 2 or 3 coats with this color to get it to cover, and I just did like 2 quick coats on it. Now you put the inner wheels on like so. I don't use glue for the inner wheels, and I put glue on the end of the pegs and then put the outer wheels on. It's important that you press from the very back of the mounting pegs. Don't hold it by the main chassis. You got to go on back of the suspension when you do that, or they'll break. This is putting the sprocket together. It's real important to get the teeth lined up on this model because it has individual track links, and you have to put them into the slots. And what I actually do is I take that and I glue it together with regular model glue, then mount it on the chassis, and then install a link while it's still wet. Oh, well, got to glue the chassis together, by the way. See, I'm not a very good narrator, and there's a lot of pictures here, and that one was out of order. That one's out of order, but anyway, that's the parts for the struts for the skirts and the armored apron. There's your tracks. Okay, now we're back on the build video. So we put the sprocket together, but before you do that, you get these tracks. This is what it looks like when it comes off the tree. You'll need to trim the edges off because those tracks fit flush up against the hull. If you don't trim them until they look like that, they won't fit right. So you need to trim off all the flash left over from where they attach to the trees. Then take a probe like this, is just stretched plastic with some glue on the end of it, and I use crazy glue for this part, paint on paint, and grab your little track like that, your link, make sure it's pointing the right way, i.e. make sure the teeth part they're all consistent. Then you put it in there, and you want to do this while that sprocket's still wet, the 2 halves, and then you just move the outer sprocket until it's straight like that. And you, one at a time, put all the links on, being sure the links are aligned right with each other. For the top section, you want to bend your track like that a little bit. Otherwise, if you don't, then you'll have to hold it down after you mount it. And if you bend it, it'll just fit right on. So that's right after I glued the track on. And then before you go any further, you want to weather your tracks up a little bit. And I think we get some pics. I think in the next pictures it gets weathered. Oh, that's with the hull. You'll have to bend the rear fenders up to clear the tracks. Now we've got the tracks weathered up, and at one point I worked on the edges there. That's where I cut and got rid of flash and stuff. You can see that progression. I used an umber wash, a light brown. I paint them black, then I paint them metal, and then I paint them dry brush with a light dry brush with a brown, and then I come back with an umber wash over the whole track. And I use the umber wash for the bogies. That part has 2 tabs on the upper part right by those gearboxes, and you have to cut those tabs off or it won't fit. You'll see what I mean when you build the kit. The instructions call for it to be fit on with those tabs, and if you don't want to have to tear that rear section out and refit it, then you have to do it. Now, what we just saw was pictures of all the hull. I'm doing the hull now. I have to file the edges on the hull because they attach to the tree right there on the front of the fenders, which is really bad. You want them to get it nice, and you want them to look nice and nice without that part nub coming off of it. Now the way I glue is I just get a dab of glue on a pallet, whatever surface handy, the edge of a box in this case, get it up on a probe, and for a hatch I'll take the glue and apply it on the inside edges of the hatch, and that way you don't get glue all over the place. And I put glue, there's no guide, so you have to guesstimate it. I took some pictures and then I put some glue on the hull there with a probe again, and then put the part on top of that. This is regular model glue, so it doesn't dry fast, so you can move the part around after you get it on. Plastic on plastic, you use regular model glue. Plastic on paint or paint on paint, you use crazy glue. After you get the side compartments in there, you're going to have to file that out. They stick out around 1/8 of an inch. They have to be filed down. And then there's a part that goes on the rear, which won't fit flushly. It'll have this big, huge, monstrous gap in there if you don't file those compartments down. And then we get more parts on it. The gun housing, you'll have to file down the outside of the gun housing, because if you don't, it's too big. It'll extend up over the top of the hull. So that was done on this model. And then there's the rear piece that goes over the filed area on the back. Next, we put some black paint on it, and then we come back with our, in this case, Vallejo dark yellow, and it's virtually the same color as Dunkelgelb, by the way. And then we moved to the turret. I didn't get pictures of me building the, putting the struts in and stuff like that, because, well, I don't know, picking up the camera after every assembly is crazy. One thing I did do is, the turret's really tight, as they tend to be. I always take the little locking pins out off the turret so that it doesn't lock into place. You just set it down in the hole in the hull. That way you don't end up with too much pressure when you turn it, and you won't strip your paint off the hull, which has happened to me before. When you put the side armor skirts, you want to put those pieces in straight in so that the end of the piece is parallel to the skirt. You don't want it to look at the turret. See there that doesn't have those little knobs, so I had to make a little knob for it. Now I've looked at Panzer IVs, and sometimes they have the knob on the left, and on the right of the gun, and sometimes they don't. In this case, I can just put one on and still be accurate. So I put one on the left, where I've never seen a Panzer IV without one. It's common to see them without them on the right. Here's another picture of that skirt, so I can finish that sentence. You want those struts out angled. You don't want them perpendicular to the skirt. You'll have problems if you do. So this is the assembled model, and then it's all this is a dry fit. Actually, before I put the tracks on, I believe. Yeah, the tracks weren't on when I took these pictures, but this is just a dry fit, which is suggested before you put the tracks on, just to make sure everything fits right. You don't want to have to be manhandling the model, because the tracks are delicate. The links fall off and stuff if you manhandle it too much after you put the tracks on. So she looks pretty nice. They all fit together well, and then I did the camo, and you'll see the camo in the final reveal. Anyway, I hope you like this build. I'm not that great of a narrator, and I apologize for that, but I think I hit all the highlights I wanted to hit, with the fact that the model doesn't have the little observation port covers on either side of the gun barrel, which would normally appear at least always on the left, sometimes on the right on a Panzer IV, so you have to make some kind of part to put there. Otherwise, it looks funny. To me, it looks funny without at least one port there. Those are actually observation port covers, those little knobs, in case you didn't know. The other thing was the back plate. You have to cut the tabs off the top, even though the instructions call for those tabs to be there. If you try to put the model together with those tabs in, you're going to have to tear it apart again and cut them off. So to save you the trouble of doing that, I thought I'd tell you about it. The other trick is to use regular model glue when you're putting your the outer sprocket on the sprocket. You glue the inner sprocket onto the hull, and then let that dry, and then you take regular model glue and put the outer sprocket in, and while that's still wet, you want to put your first link in, the first single link part in there, and then straighten it up while the glue's still wet on the sprocket. so you can turn the sprocket. It's real easy to straighten them up that way. So anyway, this has been a quick build video with with as good a narration as I can probably do, because I'm not a great narrator. But anyway, check out the upcoming final reveal of this model with the camo and weathering.